Just because your dua hasn't been answered yet doesn't mean it's been rejected. In fact, one of the most powerful lessons a believer can internalize is that Allah's silence is never indifference. His is often not a punishment, but a layer of mercy and divine wisdom that our limited understanding cannot grasp. As humans, we often want what we desire to happen immediately, realizing that's not only essential but sacred. We look at the world through a keyhole, while Allah sees the entire view, past, present and future, in one seamless image. Asking for maybe be good in your eyes now, but it may be harmful for you later. It may be something that your heart desires deeply, but your soul may not be ready to carry its weight. Allah in His infinite mercy, not just the destination you're begging for. There is a profound tranquility in realizing that unanswered dues are not signs of neglect, but signs of a story still unfolding. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that dua is never wasted. Either it is granted, delayed for something better, or it becomes a protection from harm you never saw coming. Sometimes what looks like a door closed is actually a wall Allah built to stop something dangerous from reaching you. Maybe the relationship you were praying for would have broken your heart. Maybe the job you cried over not getting would you a peace. Maybe the illness you asked to be cured from the means of wiping away your sins and softening your soul. We don't always recognize the shape of mercy while we're still inside the test. It's only when we look back with time and wisdom that we realize the no was actually a not yet, or even more beautifully. I have something better. Our duas are heard the moment they leave our lips. Allah al-Mujib, the one who responds, hears the cries in the middle of the night, the whispers from a broken heart, the tears that fall in sujood, and while we may be impatient with the outcome, the response is already on its way, in a form we may not recognize or at a time we cannot predict. You uttered into every plea to it. The angels will record every plea, every hope, every name you mentioned. Not a single request is lost. The beauty of divine delay is that it creates space for growth, for transformation, and for a kind of trust that only flourishes in darkness. There are people who asked for something for years. Some asked for children, some for healing, some for guidance, some for a righteous spouse. But through that patience, they changed. Their character softened, their iman deepened, their priorities shifted. They became more compassionate, more reliant on Allah. The small things they once overlooked. In some cases, when what they had prayed for finally arrived, they had become someone completely different, someone stronger, someone wiser, to protect the blessing rather than misuse it. If Allah had answered it instantly, maybe they would have destroyed the very thing they had begged for. And sometimes, Allah gives you something better than what you asked for in a form you didn't expect. You may have asked for a specific opportunity, but He opened a different door that led to more barakah. It was for someone to stay in your life, but He removed them and replaced that space with peace and self-worth. You may have asked for wealth, but instead He gave you contentment, a treasure that can't be measured. Or the delay in response is never random. It's target precise, intentional. You're not being ignored, you're being guided. Your heart is being trained to seek the giver, not just the gift. Every dua changes you. The longer you pray, the closer you feel to Allah. The more you cry, the more your heart releases its burdens into His care. There is no such thing as a wasted prayer. Even if you don't receive exactly what you want, you walk away with increased closeness to your Creator. And that closeness is what will carry you through every trial. Because when your heart beats in rhythm with the decree of Allah, no delay can break you. You become anchored in Tawakkul, complete trust that what is meant for you will reach you, even if the whole world stands against it. And what is not for you, never touch you, even if the entire universe conspires to deliver it. There is something sacred in the pause between your dua and Allah's response. Space that your sincerity is tested. It's in that silence that your heart reveals its true attachment. Are you asking for the blessing? Or are you asking to be closer to the one who gives it? Do delays to draw you to hear your voice more often, to see you in sajda again and again, until that habit becomes part of your soul, not just a means to an end. If He gave you what you wanted right away, He stopped calling on Hina, but He loves when His servants return again and again, with hope, with vulnerability, with brokenness. Because it is often through brokenness that hearts become most sincere. Imagine if every prayer was instant, would you still turn to Allah in the same way? Would your duas be as raw, as heartfelt, as filled with longing? Or would you treat Allah like a vending machine? Make a request. The delay protects the relationship between you and your Lord. It deepens it, it purifies it, it creates a space where faith grows. That's why dua is not just a request, it's a form of worship. Declaration of belief in the unseen. It's a surrender to the wisdom of Allah's plan. And sometimes that act of surrender is more valuable than the thing you were asking for. Allah's knowledge encompasses everything. He knows what you prayed for at 2 a.m. that no one else knows about. He knows the wishes you keep in your heart and are too shy to say out loud. He knows when you're barely holding on. When you smile in front of others but cry when you're alone. And He's not just listening, He's planning. In the most beautiful, most merciful, most perfect way. He's lining up people events that will bring about something you never even imagined possible. You are not forgotten. Your voice is not lost. Your sincerity is not ignored. Everything is being recorded, measured. Precision, you are being protected in ways you can't see. There are dangers you didn't even know were close, that were silently deflected because Allah intervened. But they were doors you begged to walk through, but they were kept closed because what was behind them would have harmed you. There are people you prayed to keep in your life, but they were removed because their presence would have dimmed your light. Allah doesn't just give, He guards. And when He withholds, it is never without purpose. Or being waiting is a moment where you are being held gently in the fold of divine wisdom. Real strength is in trusting Allah's plan when nothing makes sense. It's easy to have faith when life is flowing smoothly. Their results are quickly when the results align perfectly with your expectations. But real unshakable faith is born in moments of confusion, in seasons of waiting, in the trenches of uncertainty. Is where the sincerity of your belief is tested, when everything seems to contradict the promises you believed in, yet your heart still says, I trust you. That is where patience transforms from a passive endurance to an active, powerful force rooted in full submission to divine wisdom. When everything around you feels uncertain, when the future looks hazy and your mind is exhausted from trying to figure it all out, it takes a different kind of strength to let go and say, I don't understand this, but I know you do. That is not weakness. That is not surrendering to defeat. That is surrendering to knowledge that your understanding is limited, but Allah's knowledge is infinite. It is acknowledging that you do not see the entire picture. Sees every detail from every angle. It is finding rest in the fact that your soul doesn't have to carry the burden of controlling every outcome because Allah has already been in control. Doesn't simply say that Allah sees us or He knows or knows, though He does all of those things. It says that Allah is with the patient. That presence is not distant. It is not passive. It is not indifferent. It is active, struggling to remain patient through a painful storm. Allah is not far from you. He is right there. He is not just watching your pain. He is carrying you through it. Every breath you take, with every prayer you whisper in the darkness, with every step you make despite not seeing what lies ahead, this divine presence is not something that everyone feels all the time. Patience, Sabr, begin to feel it not as a loud voice or a bright sign, but as a quiet reassurance, as a calm that rests on the heart when logic fails. As in grows in the resilience for the most uncertain times. Patience is not just sitting back and waiting for something to happen. Patience is standing firm with dignity and hope nowhere. Patience is not weakness. It's one of the most powerful acts of faith a believer can embody. There are people who look strong on the outside, their muscles, but when faced with a single setback, they collapse. Then there are people whose hearts have been shattered, whose lives have been tested again and again, yet they keep smiling, keep praying. That is strength, that is courage, that is sabr. Because patience in the face of confusion is not easy. It means continuing to pray even when you feel unheard. Truth that every delay has a purpose. It means quieting the voice of doubt with the voice of tawakkul, trust in Allah. It's easy to praise Allah when life is good, but when life hurts, and you still raise your hands in dua, still go down in sujud, still say alhamdulillah, that is what transforms your faith. That is when you're no longer worshipping Allah for the gifts, but for who He is. That is when you begin to feel His closeness in ways that comfort can never teach you. That's when you understand that patience is not about waiting for life to be perfect. It's about staying connected to Allah when everything feels far from perfect. Trusting in Allah's plan doesn't mean you will never feel scared or uncertain. It means you allow those feelings to pass through your heart without letting them take control. It means that even when you don't understand the why, you still hold on to the who. It means that deep inside your heart knows that there is wisdom unfolding beyond what your eyes can see. And in that unseen wisdom, there is always mercy. There is always a reason that you will one day be grateful for. Patience refines you. It removes your attachment to the temporary and reconnects you to the eternal. Go of the illusion that you can control outcomes and teaches you to focus on your efforts, your sincerity, and your connection with your Creator. The believer who learns sabr becomes unshakable because life stopped testing them, but because they have learned to anchor themselves in Allah regardless of the tide. They know that hardship is not permanent. They know that ease follows difficulty, that the plan of Allah is never flawed. Sometimes what breaks your heart is what builds your soul. Sometimes what you thought was the end is the beginning of something better, but you don't see it at first. All you see is the loss, the pains when you must choose patience, not because you feel strong, but because you know that Allah is strong. Not because you feel hopeful. You know that Allah never fails. That's when you realize that sabr is not about waiting for your life to change. It's about letting your heart change in the waiting. A lost the people he loved most when he was rejected, mocked, and oppressed. He did not curse his fate. He stood in prayer. He cried to his Lord. He walked through grief with patience and dignity. Waiting wasn't in fighting the bang regular. It was in surrendering to Allah's decree with full trust that there was wisdom behind the pain. His entire life teaches us that patience is not passive suffering. It is the highest form of strength because it is rooted in humility before the one who knows best. And that's the essence of true strength in faith. Not the absence of emotion, but recognizing that your strength of strength is not yours alone. It's from the one who is always with you. When Allah says He is with the patient, Means He is your companion, a source of comfort in heartbreak, your light in confusion. It means you are never really alone, even when everyone else walks away. It means you have something stronger than circumstances. You have a connection to the divine that no trial can sever. This closeness, this divine nearness becomes clearer the longer you persevere. As you keep walking, trusting, even in silence, even in darkness, you begin to notice a shift inside. You stop needing immediate answers and instead start finding contentment in the journey. You stop demanding certainty and start embracing trust. You stop measuring your strength by how much you can do and begin measuring by how deeply you can trust. Because when you know that Allah is with you, truly with you, you don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to keep going with faith, one moment at a time, every tear, every sleepless and every whispered prayer. Allah knows. He's not ignoring you, He's building you. In the moments when you cry alone, when your pillow is soaked with no one else sees, when your heart else sees, when your heart feels like it's shattering under the weight of things you can't speak about, know that Allah is closer to you than your own jugular vein. Not a single sigh escapes your chest without His knowledge. Not a single tremble in your voice goes unnoticed. The moments of pain you keep hidden from the world are fully seen and fully known by the one who created your heart in the first place. Pain is never pointless. Sadness is never wasted. Signs of weakness or divine neglect, they are part of a divine process that is shaping you into who you are meant to be. The same way gold is purified through fire, the soul is refined through trial. The very things that bring you to your knees are the same things that will elevate you, soften you, and awaken parts of you that would never emerge in ease. Allah doesn't allow a single tear to fall without purpose. Your questions, your quiet desperation, and uses it to carve depth into your character and sincerity into your soul. You are not being punished, you are being built. Sometimes it's in the fire that we find our faith. Sometimes it's through loss that we discover love. Sometimes it's in loneliness that we meet Allah more intimately than we ever could in comfort. The siblets that feel endless are actually sacred conversations between you and your Creator. When the whole world is asleep, when there's no one to talk to, and you quietly whisper, "Why Allah?" in the dark, that's a moment of pure connection. That is where your strength is being born. Allah knows what you've been through. He knows the betrayals you didn't deserve, the dreams that were shattered, the people who left without explanation, the moments where you were strong for everyone else even when you were falling apart inside. And He's not distant from your pain. He is near, not passive. It's deeply involved. He is working through your hardship, rearranging your life, guiding your heart, preparing you for something far greater than what you're holding on to right now. Your sadness is a sign that you cared, that you hoped, and Allah sees that not as a flaw, but as a reflection of the soul He gave you. Sometimes what hurts you most is the thing that awakens your most sincere dua. Sometimes it's the moment of complete emotional collapse that becomes your greatest spiritual elevation. The pain opens a space in your heart that only Allah can fill. The world may not understand the depth of your grief, but the one who created your emotion does. He doesn't just understand, He responds. Not always in the way you expect, and not always in the time you desire, but always in the form that is best for your long-term healing and growth. There are moments when you're doing everything right, you're praying, you're giving, you're trying to be better, and yet life still feels heavy. Allah has turned away. That's a sign that He is refining you. Every hardship has a layer of mercy woven through it, even if it's hidden from your sight. You may not see the growth while you're still in the storm, but there are parts of you being strengthened in ways you won't fully realize until the storm passes. You are being trained to rely not on people, not on circumstances. And that is as a lesson that pain teaches more powerfully than ease ever could. You are not a burden because you feel deeply. You are not weak because you break down. Every tear you've cried has been seen. You don't need to put on a brave face for Allah. You don't need to explain your sadness to Him. He already knows. And in that knowing, there is comfort. There is peace. There is a reminder that alone in your struggle, even if the world walks away, building isn't glamorous. It's messy, slow, often painful, but it's purposeful. Meeting you with full knowledge of who you are and who you're meant to become. He sees your potential, your sincerity, your capacity for faith. Sometimes He has to tear down what's familiar in order to rebuild something stronger. You may feel like you're losing everything, but what you're really losing is the false sense of control that was never yours to begin with. What you're gaining is a heart that beats in tune with divine trust. A soul that bends in sujood before it breaks under the weight of this world. There is a sacredness to your heartbreak. It's a reminder that you're human, that you care, that you're alive. But more than that, who never wastes your pain. The things you go through in silence are being written in the unseen, and they will return to you in the form of strength, wisdom, closeness to Allah, and a future that carries blessings you never even thought to ask for. You may feel like everything is falling apart, but in reality, things are being rearranged in a way that aligns perfectly with the divine script of your life, meant to carry the weight of the world on your own. That's why Allah gives you moments that break you, not to destroy you, but to remind you to hand over the burden. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be honest in your dua, consistent in your prayers, and patient in your process. Your journey is not being overlooked. It's being carefully watched by the most merciful. You knows your capacity better than you ever could. When He sees you breaking, He also sees the strength that is being born within you. And He never lets that go to waste. Every whispered do you made in secret. Every time you bit your tongue and chose patience, every time you said Alhamdulillah with tears in your eyes, it's all being recorded, it's all being honored. And one day, you will look back and understand that the version of you who is standing tall, grounded in faith and filled with peace, was built in the nights you thought you wouldn't survive. That version was born in the fire. The shaped struggle also held together by hope, and Allah saw every moment of it. He didn't ignore you, He was building you gently, intentionally. With mercy in every thread of the journey you couldn't yet see, Allah may delay what you want so you can grow into the person who can handle it. It's not just about receiving, it's about becoming. Often in life, we become so focused on the outcome we're praying for that we forget about the transformation taking place within us while we wait. A delay is sometimes the very environment that shapes us into someone stronger, wiser, and more spiritually anchored than we ever imagined. You may think you're simply waiting for a dream to come true. But what's really happening is the quiet construction of your character brick by brick, moment by moment. When you ask Allah for something, He doesn't just look at the request, He looks at your readiness. He looks in whether the blessing will elevate you or break you. He considers whether you have the strength to protect what you're asking for, or if it will become a source of regret once it's in your hands. It's not that you don't deserve it, but that your growth must match the weight of the blessing. Some gifts are too heavy for who you are right now. Some dreams would crush you if you received them prematurely. Allah refines. Instead of handing you everything at once, He gives you lessons, challenges, trials that slowly build you up from the inside out. The process of becoming is rarely glamorous, filled with days that test your patience, that stretch out your faith, and moments that push you beyond what you thought you could endure. But every test is tailored to teach. Every difficulty is a tool of elevation. You may think you're standing still because nothing external is moving, but within you entire galaxies are shifting. Your heart is being trained to rely less on outcomes and more on submission. It's being pulled closer to its source, not through comfort but through struggle. The longer you wait, the deeper your roots grow and the more stable your future becomes. Imagine asking for something massive, a role, a responsibility, and receiving it when you're still fragile, impatient, insecure, or unaware of its true value. It could overwhelm you. You might mishandle it, could bring chaos instead of barakah. So Allah, to grow you, to prepare the container before He fills it. Just like a farmer waits for the soil to be ready before planting seeds, Allah waits for your inner soil to be furry the growth you're praying for. And in that waiting, He doesn't abandon you. He nurtures you. He strengthens your minds. He sharpens your mind. He softens your heart with confusion, with the feeling that nothing is going according to plan. But in reality, everything is going according to a better plan. You might be losing what you wanted so you can gain what you truly need. And as you shed old habits, outdated beliefs and toxic attachments, you make space for better things to enter. But the delay gives you time to let go of what no longer serves your soul. It strips you down to your core. So what's built afterward is rooted in truth and sincerity. You don't just become someone who has what they pray for. You become someone who's worthy of it, someone who can protect it, appreciate it, and elevate it further. There are blessings that come with responsibilities, things that come with trials. And sometimes Allah waits until your shoulders are strong enough to carry them. You may not realize it now, but every disappointment you've experienced was also a divine redirection. Has a hidden footnote that says, let me build you first. The heartbreaks weren't just endings. They were introductions to the deeper parts of yourself you hadn't yet discovered. The rejections weren't just closed doors. They were opportunities for you to turn inward, to reflect, to rise. And in rising you grew. It's not about how fast you get there. It's about who you become along the way. The person who learns sabr through struggle becomes a source of comfort for others. The person who learns resilience through pain becomes a fortress for those who are breaking. The person who learns reliance on Allah through isolation becomes a beacon of faith. You are not just being delayed. You are being prepared for something greater than what you originally asked for. Preparation requires your heart to be stretched, your ego to be humbled, and your faith to be sharpened. When Allah holds something back from you, it's never without purpose. There is divine precision in His timing, even when you don't understand it. You may think you're ready, but readiness is not measured by desire. It's measured by capacity. It's measured by discipline, character, gratitude. And these things can't be downloaded overnight. They must be earned, experienced, cultivated through real life situations. That's why you're waiting, not because you're forgotten. The same person you were when you first made that dua. Time has shifted you. Trials have taught you. Your voice in prayer has changed. Your posture in sujood has deepened it. What you once begged for with desperation, you now ask for with wisdom. What you once thought you couldn't live without, you now realize you've outgrown. That is growth. That is transformation. All ikhlas is in the waiting room of life. And no growth is ever wasted. No delay is ever random. Every moment is measured with divine care. You were created not just to receive, but to become someone who reflects the beauty of Tawakkul. To become someone whose character is a mirror of the Prophet's patience. to become someone whose heart remains soft even after being broken, is not just to gain a worldly outcome, but to elevate spiritually, to purify your intentions, to deepen your connection with your Creator. Ituan shitran that your value you doth does not depend on what you have, but on who you are when things are uncertain. Even if you haven't received what you asked for yet, take a moment to reflect on who you've become because of the delay. Your heart turns to Allah more often. Look at how your dues have become more sincere. Look at how your empathy for others has grown. Look at how your understanding of patience has matured. That's the real gift. Blessing behind the silence. That's the transformation that will serve you for the rest of your life. Not just in this world, but in the hereafter. You're not just being tested, you're being developed into the person Allah always knew you could be. And that journey, with all its ups and downs, with all its tears and prayers, is part of the mercies that surrounds you even when you feel most delayed. If faith isn't tested when things go your way, it's tested in the waiting. And those who keep believing through the silence will see the most beautiful endings. When life unfolds according to your plans, when doors open easily, when your dues are answered quickly, when the path is smooth and illuminated, it's easy to feel grateful. It's easy to believe. But real unwavering faith does not reveal itself in the moments of ease. It emerges in the moments where there are no answers, no signs. That silence is not empty. It is the arena in which your faith is refined, purified, and revealed for what it truly is. The silence is where your heart is stripped bare, where your intentions are exposed, where your trust in Allah is either broken or strengthened. It is in the launched and unanswered prayers, in that confusing chapter of life, where nothing seems to move, where your iman either wilts or blooms. The test is not in receiving what you asked for. It's in continuing to believe without seeing. It's in holding on when your hands feel weak. It's in choosing to believe in Allah's goodness when everything around you feels like a contradiction. That's when you're truly tested, and that's where faith either survives or surrenders. It is a battle that takes place in the waiting too. It's a subtle one, unfolding inside your heart. It's the inner voice that whispers. It's the creeping doubt that says, if Allah was really listening, wouldn't this be over by now? And it's in those moments that you must choose to drown those voices in remembrance. To say, why Allah? Not because you see the solution, but because you know He is the only one who can bring it. That is the power of faith that persists in silence. When you're met with silence, it means your strength is being measured, your patience is being grown, your sincerity is being revealed. It's easy to say, I trust Allah, when you feel His gifts. Is emptiness? Can you whisper, Alhamdulillah, when your heart is heavy, when the things you love are slipping away, when the people you counted on walk away? Can you keep your forehead on the prayer mat, not just in celebration, but in surrender? That is when the quality of your faith is seen. That is when your heart is closest to Allah. True faith doesn't demand proof. It doesn't rely on evidence. It doesn't have the comfort. It trusts even in the darkness. The Prophet Abraham stood in front of the fire with no idea how he would be saved, but he trusted that Allah would make a way. Faced the pains of childbirth alone under a tree with no one to comfort her but Allah. The Prophet Muhammad was driven out of his homeland, surrounded by enemies, abandoned by his own people, but he still said, just stories. They are reminders that silence is not abandonment, delay is not rejection, hardship is not evidence of divine anger. It is the training ground for prophets, for believers. Jannah, silence has a way of magnifying what you believe. When there is no noise, no distractions, no worldly affirmations, your soul leans entirely on what it knows to be true. If you continue to believe through that silence, you begin to witness a shift, not necessarily in your circumstances, but in yourself. Your duty becomes less about asking and more about connecting. Your heart becomes less about needing outcomes and more about needing Allah. You start to find beauty in the waiting, not because it's easy, but because it softens you, because it purifies you. You to your knees again and again. And each time you rise stronger, the silence teaches you to let go of control, to stop relying on your plans, to surrender your need for certainty. Not just for results, but for relationship. Turns your prayers into anchors rather than transactions. And slowly, without even realizing it, believer who no longer needs signs to stay faithful, you just believe. You wake up each day with no answers and still say, I trust you. You go to sleep each night with unanswered prayers and still whisper, you are enough for me. That level of trust is not ordinary, it's extraordinary. It's the kind of trust that changes your entire reality. Search for signs, for miracles, for immediate responses. But one of the greatest signs that your dua is working is the strength you're gaining in the waiting. The peace that begins to settle in your heart despite the chaos. The discipline you develop from showing up for fajr, from staying away from sin, from continuing to ask even when you don't know what the answer will be. If the silence gives you, it gives you yourself reshaped in the image of trust, faith, and resilience. It gives you a very heart that is no longer driven by the world's timing, but by Allah's wisdom. When you least expect it, when you've stopped calculating the days and the timelines, when your dua has become your companion instead of your demand, that's when the most beautiful endings begin to unfold. You're not your force, not manipulated by your hands, but placed gently in your life by the one who waited until the perfect moment. You begin to see why the delay was necessary, why the silence was sacred, why the waiting was a gift in disguise. The most beautiful endings are not always the ones that give you what you originally asked for, but the ones that give you what your soul truly needed. When the reward arrives after the waiting, it's not just sweeter, it's sacred. You don't just appreciate the gift, you appreciate the journey that shaped you to receive it. You look back and realize that had things come sooner, they would not have meant as much. They would not have landed in the hands of someone as grateful, as humbled. That is what faith through silence creates. It creates a story of love between you and Allah that no one else can see. A story written in tears, patience, whispered du'as and sujood. A story that shapes you into someone who no longer fears the waiting because you've tasted the beauty that comes after it. The kind of beauty that cannot be explained, only lived. Beauty that starts with silence and ends with peace.